Okay, I told you we came down here, camera girl and I, playing hooky, looking at castle stones. We're in Little Tomonora, and the last lost castle that we found. Well, let me back up. I have to make a retraction and a public apology. Let me do that first. I have told you that there were 49 or 50 castles in Fukuyama City. I was wrong. My castle database settings were set wrong by me. It was my fault. I've found the error and corrected it now. And the correction to the record, there are 387 castles, castle ruins, in this city. 387. Known. How many lost and unknown? Nobody knows. Probably one or two, I would think. I would bet. So I'm sorry for that. 387 castles. Now the last lost castle that we found, it wasn't lost to the experts. The database told us the general area. It was on one of 3 or 4 hilltops back in here. It was lost in the sense that it was lost to public knowledge. No one I asked who lives here, friends who have lived here all their lives, no one had ever heard of it, let alone was able to point us to it. So it was lost in an everyday, practical sense. And it took us a year to find it. The major problem, well, there were 2 major problems. One was very rugged terrain. And it's ringed around by private land. It's all surrounded by private land. But if you buy a lanyard for $1 and put your own business card in there and go about with respectful confidence, it's surprising how far you might be able to go. And if anyone asks what you're doing, if I were you, I'd answer truthfully. If you happen to be trespassing, apologize. The odds are people will just say, fair enough, carry on then. And then you carry on. So we carried on, and we found a practically lost castle. And one of the good hints, this is what this video is about, was stone distribution. When a Japanese castle is abandoned, the last owners tear it all down as much as they can, so it doesn't fall into your enemy's hands, or even the hands of pirates or brigands or other upstarts. Economists call this a barrier to entry. Barrier to entry in the warlord industry. It's good. It's a good thing if you are a warlord. Now what happens next is the peasants and the monks and the priests come in and salvage stone. They pick up and carry off as much as they can, because cut stone, cut by master stone cutters, is highly valuable. If I lived near a knocked-down castle, and I was a peasant farmer, and I had a couple of brawny sons and an ox or a mule, or a wife, I'd set myself up in the second-hand castle stone business. I'd take out a loan, I'd buy me a cart, and I would deliver castle stones right to your door, charge you by the ton. That's exactly right. Now, Little Tomonora had 3 castles in its history, known castles. The main one here, where the Museum of History is now. And it was big. It covered all of this area. This was all walled in. It was the capital of this region for a while, and, little known fact, capital of Japan for a few months. If you want to really impress your Japanese friends, ask them about the Tomonora Bakufu, or the Tomo Bakufu, the Tomonora military dictatorship period, a very obscure sliver of history. There was a pirate castle here, which finished in a very bloody battle. It's horrible to read about. This used to be an island 500 years ago. Our Buddhist friends took it over. And our lost castle here. And several more up on this peninsula. So everywhere you look, you will see recycled castle stones. You can count how many you can find in this video. That'll keep you busy. Now, castle stones are heavy. And the bigger, the heavier. So, you find small stones outside of town in farmers' fields. They're smaller, they're more portable and less valuable, so they get turned into retaining walls and terraced rice paddies. These are stones that you could carry yourself or make your wife carry in a bag or basket. And you can just get her done like that. Now, stones that you would need me to deliver on my cart, or my wife's, no, they're too big for my wife. They don't even make it out of town. They go to the highest bidders, and those are usually the Buddhists and the Shintoists. They have all the money. The really big stones that even my ox can't drag, can't even budge, they just get left where they are and incorporated into the townscape somehow as foundations or the back wall of your garage or whatever. So we were really encouraged, wandering down around here, when we started seeing big stones, expensive stones, priceless, invaluable historical treasures used as the foundations for very poor, very shabby dwellings, shacks, and even outhouses. That was telling us that we were warm, warmer and getting hot. Stone distribution. Here's an empty lot in Fukuyama, near my house. Take a closer look, and someone laid a castle stone border here, but not much. They ran out of castle stone. These are, of course, small and portable. I will show you, across from my house, my neighbor's moat is made from recycled castle stones, medium-sized ones. My own moat is made with natural stone, and it's nice. I'm not complaining. But he's a big landowner with a long history, and his ancestors had money. And he has beautiful castle stones lining his moat. I'll show you maybe in the next video. Anyway, the situation is very different. Looking for a lost castle on Mount Zao. But we should be able to apply the lessons learned here of stone distribution. This is how it's different. Number one, the castle we're looking for is much older. These here were medieval castles, no more than 500 or 600 years old. That castle that we're looking for now is 1,300 years old. So that's a bit more challenging. Two, it's on top of a mountain. It's a deliberately inaccessible hill fort, not a walled city, not a port city. Three, it probably didn't even use much stone. It was probably mostly rammed earthworks and timber, all of which is long ago dust in the wind. Four, it is actually lost. It's lost to the experts. And we're no experts. We're bumbling amateurs and meddling foreigners, just speaking for myself. With nothing but a lanyard from the dollar store around my neck and a dream in my heart. So there's no help from any database, but there is from local legend, which, well, that's our database, our oral database. Now, some of these photos need comment. That skyscraper there is my buddy Goro's Cafe, and beside it is our favorite fishmonger shop. It was closed on this day. Too bad. Pretty house on this corner, and those are not castle stones, I don't think. They're uncut. They might be recycled megaliths. Historic house here, and yes, it is built on a castle stone base. Most of these buildings are. Craftsman's markings. Nobody knows what they mean. They could be signatures. That's one theory. They could be assembly instructions. Nobody knows. The main drag. Whenever you come to Tomonora, please leave your car at home. Take the bus. This is the central artery through town, and it's a two-way street and a bus route. You should see two full-size city buses passing each other through here. Nerves of steel, Japanese bus drivers, highly skilled. Steps up the main castle mount and back down. An old stable here built on beautiful castle stones. My friend's stained glass shop, she was closed. Too bad. That's an ancient anchor, not a castle stone. Somebody salvaged an old cannon. The old castle sewer. The old castle well. Look at that beautiful stonework. My buddy's kayak and burger shop, but he was closed this day, probably out kayaking. The former Port Authority and Naval Station, now a curry shop, but it was closed. Everything was closed. This is the base of the old pirate castle. And down around the base is the old red light district. This was a famous old cat house, owned and operated by the Buddhists. The whole red light district. One of the ways that they got all their lucre. Former coastline and corner turret. Now a temple on top with a beautiful view of Bentenjima, that island with the pagoda on it, which is going to feature very strongly when I tell you about my sea monster, my sea serpent. It was swimming in that direction, and the significance was totally lost on me at the time. Okay, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed walking around with us and just thinking about the life cycle of Castle stones. Now, this afternoon, we are planning to go either to a magnificent megalithic tomb or a 10th century castle ruin. That's the oldest one I could find. Oldest known one. To learn what we can about, 10th century castle design, and I just hope it's not too different from 8th century castle design. Although, you have to bear in mind, every castle is unique, uniquely taking advantage of its own position. So we're going to do one of those things, I hope. The wife clerk gets to choose which one. So you too have a great weekend. We have a real juicy mailbag segment coming up with contributions from friend and foe alike. And I'm looking forward to reading some mail from rude, foul-mouthed foes in my goofiest voice. Okay, bye-bye.